Did you know that you could scale your e-commerce brand to multi-7 and multi-8 figures with Google Ads despite having a low search volume? I'm talking about adding an extra 50% to even 75% in top of the line monthly revenue to your e-commerce brand just with Google Ads. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how you can do this for your own brand and even go over a few live examples where we actually made this happen, because the problem of having low monthly search volume is honestly part of the past. Nowadays, you can easily go around it with the right strategies and with the right techniques. But on a fundamental level, what you want to understand is, yes, Google Ads is a platform that works on the monthly search volume, because at the end of the day, that's your audience on Google. That's the number of people that are searching for your products within a given period of time. I mean, that's the same for this brand right here, which had very low monthly search volume, but despite that, we're scaling it up to $200,000 a month in revenue. This brand literally sells car wheels, and not just any random car, but very specific car makes and car models, which makes this extra niche specific. Along with that, this brand right here as well, where our search impression share in the last 30 days, it's roughly 77%. I mean, to give you perspective, a 30 to 40% search impression share is considered high for majority of the brands. This brand is at 77%, but despite that, we're able to scale this brand to roughly $30,000 to $35,000 in a month in a given period of time. But what you want to again understand is search volume is key. If there's too little search volume, meaning if there's barely 5 people or maybe barely 10 people searching for your product, ultimately you cannot show your ad to 15 people or 20 people in a given month because the search volume is so limited. So instead, you need to take what I like to call the broad approach, which bypasses these narrowed keywords, which bypasses this narrowed approach. This broad approach is fairly simple. You need to have, first of all, 3 different campaign types running within that given ad account. It could be Performance Max campaign, the search campaign, and the standard shopping campaign, or it could be Performance Max search, YouTube, or demand gen, or display discovery. Whatever you plan to use, make sure to use a campaign type which is directed towards cold traffic. And with this broad approach, what we like to do is we like to do that 80-20 rule, where 80% of our budget goes towards cold traffic campaigns, and maybe 10 to 20% of our budget goes towards retargeting campaigns or hot or warm audiences, because those hot or warm audiences are what are going to lead our campaigns towards profitability. But the cold traffic campaigns are what will lead us to bigger and newer audiences. So both of these things keep each other in control. But the way we did that here within this car wheels brand is essentially, instead of having way too narrowed campaign approaches, instead of having way too narrowed keywords for the search campaigns, we decided to go as broad as possible. So with the PMAX approach, we went the all-in-one approach, where essentially all we were A/B testing was having images within the asset group section versus having a feed-only approach. And these images, what they did is they helped us reach a bigger pool of audience, because with the feed-only approach, you end up only going for shopping only, whereas with the assets approach, you can now go after YouTube campaigns, Gmail, discovery, remarketing, discover, so on and so forth. And this ultimately helps us increase the audience that we're showing up for, but also it helps us now go after a bigger piece of the pie. But in addition, that's not going to be enough if you want to really start scaling your low search volume brand. Now, you need to go after specific search keywords which leave way for just broader approaches, but also are not way too broad. So for example, within this search campaign, what we did is we focused on 2 different match types as our strategy: phrase match and exact match. Now with phrase match, we use certain keywords which are very broad. For example, things like racing wheels. So instead of going after a specific car make, or instead of going after a specific car model, we decided to take the broad approach of just to go after racing wheels. And yes, there's a lot of people out there who are looking for racing wheels who might not buy one of our products because they just don't drive the car which we support. But that's fine, because what this is doing is training the algorithm to not look too narrow and to kind of expand its horizon. But along with that, what you want to understand is every single one of these keyword match steps is either phrase match or exact match. We're keeping it at phrase match because we don't want to go too broad with broad match and just get anybody and everybody under the sun, but we don't want to just do exact match either and just narrow it down to the exact keywords or the specific wheel models that we're trying to sell. And this is really keeping the balance between both. I mean, because of this, we're able to maintain very good search impression shares. I mean, as you can see, it's less than 10%. So we're barely reaching even a small portion of the audience. And it's the same thing for this brand right here, which is a fashion brand, just with a very niche specific fashion approach. And although search impression share is much higher here, we're technically taking the same kind of approach. And the way we're scaling here is, first of all, by adding certain restrictions to our Performance Max campaigns to ensure it's profitable, but also for our search campaigns going after international traffic. So not just relying on one country, because yes, ultimately just being in one country will limit a lot of the growth here. But that's essentially how you want to go about testing an approach that works for the brand. Testing should be done based on the campaign types. It should also be done based on the keywords which you're targeting, broad match versus too exact or too narrow. And it should also be done with the specific products you're trying to sell. So if you don't have too many products, or even if you have a lot of products, what matters with a low search volume brand is you don't kind of segregate too much and you don't spread out your approach too much. Keep things narrow. Your audience is already narrow. You're not going to be reaching too big of an audience anyways. So you might as well keep this approach very simple, and you might as well keep all of the data coming in within a few selective campaigns instead of just going after multiple different campaign types and whatnot. But this then brings you to the scaling approach. Now, ultimately, when you get to scaling, yes, it's going to start to become a lot more difficult. You will start to notice that as you scale, that you're getting diminishing returns, where although you're increasing ad spend by 100%, 200%, the revenue maybe is only increasing by 10% or 15%. And this is the unfortunate thing with a low search volume brand. However, it's not about what number you scale to in terms of revenue. It's about keeping things steady and keeping things just moving at a profitable return on ad spend, because ultimately that should be the main goal. I mean, I know that has been the main goal here because we have been hovering around this range for quite some time now. It's been up and down, but it has been consistently staying at this level where it's at least profitable week over week. It's not the greatest level of scale, at least for this brand. I mean, in the last 90 days, it's only done about 90,000 Singaporean dollars, but it's at a 3.34x ROAS, it's profitable, and that's all that matters. So ultimately, you need to kind of sacrifice one over the other because it's just the scalability issue that your brand faces. But if you run a brand doing $1 million a year and you need just a little bit of extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But check out my top 5 performance max campaign strategies, which we have been using recently on brands like these and even high search volume brands to scale them to the very next level.